Hello and welcome to Lord of the Board. My name is Sam and today we are going to be taking a look at Zoo Vadis. We are going to be playing these animal factions trying to go up a zoo, trying to get to the very top star exhibit, being the first there, and then at the end of the game having the most laurel tokens. This is going to be a brain burner abstract negotiation game for 3 to 7 players. The designer is going to be Reiner Knizia. This is published by Bitewing Games. And the art and graphic design is done by Kwanchai Moriya as well as Brigette Indelicato. Now, before we dive in any further, a couple of notes to describe. First off, this is not the first time that this game has been made. This is actually a re-implementation of Quo Vadis, which was an older game that obviously same game, Reiner Knizia designed it, but this is just kind of a re-implementation or reimagining. It adds a couple of new concepts. And just so you know, I never actually played Quo Vadis, so this is going to be the only version of the game that I can really use as reference, and really the only version that I'm currently reviewing. Another point to make is that this game was actually sent to me by Bitewing Games to cover it for you all and see if it's right for you. And last but not least, this is going to be a production copy. This isn't going to be the final copy of the game, so some of the sizes might be a little off, and also this is going to be the deluxeified version, so a lot of the chips are going to be really nice to look at, but I believe they're just going to be cardboard tokens in the original game. So just know that your copy of the game might look different if you just get the standard edition, and also nothing is really final. But I mean, for being just a non-finished version of the game's production, it is looking really good, I must say. But let's start off by talking about the gameplay a bit. Zoo Vadis is set in a zoo where all of these animals are essentially trying to decide who is going to be the next zoo mascot. Up at the top of this zoo, the very tippity top, is the star exhibit. The star exhibit has a certain number of seats, and your goal throughout the game is to try and get at least one of your animals into one of those seats in order to score and hopefully have the most victory points at the end of the game. Now, the game is actually super simple. On your turn, you are only going to have one action, and you can only do one of a possible of 4 actions. The first being to add one of your 6 animal pawns to the zoo. There's 4 exhibits at the bottom of the board. Another option would be to follow a path and advance your animal through the exhibit to a new exhibit. Advance a peacock, which just basically is a neutral player, but you have to actually bribe them in order to do so. And the last action would be to move the zookeeper, which it is a little interesting that there is a zookeeper in the zoo run by animals. I'm kind of wondering what the situation is there. There's really no explanation on it, but I have some ideas and none of them are good. So you might be thinking, okay, all I have to do is advance my animals to the star exhibit and it's that easy. Well, it's not. It's actually a bit more complex than that. See, when you want to advance one of your animals from one exhibit to another, you have to have enough votes to leave that current exhibit. So for example, here we have a 5-seat exhibit. That means that I'm going to need 3, or the majority of votes, in order to actually leave. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You could either have 3 of your own animals in that 5-seat exhibit, and then you can move one of your animals out because you provide all of the votes that you need. Or let's say you had only 2 animals in that exhibit and another player has an animal, and you might want to bribe that player to vote for you in order to get those 3 votes that you need, and then you could advance your animal up. See, this game is a negotiation game at its heart. You are going to be needing to get those votes in order to move your animal up, but they're probably not going to do it for free and will probably ask for laurel tokens. Laurel tokens are going to be the victory points of the game, but also the currency of the game. There's a couple of different ways to gain laurel tokens throughout. One of the ways to gain laurel tokens is to actually vote and help advance other animals through the exhibit. So if you actually want to help another player move from one exhibit to another, you're going to get a laurel token for every one of the animals' votes that they needed in order for them to leave. So that's just a nice way to earn some money. You're helping yourself, but you're also helping the other player move to the next exhibit. Another way to get laurel tokens is that when your animals are advancing from one exhibit to another, there's actually going to be a laurel token in between those paths. And as your animal passes it, they will pick it up and then replace it with a random new one. Now these can go from 2 to 5 in laurel value, which means victory point value. So when you're advancing to a new exhibit, that's going to play a huge factor in other players wanting to vote for you, because they might see that you're going to gain 5 victory points if you pass it, and they might want that for themselves, and so you may not actually let them pass. And another way to gain laurel tokens is with any of the negotiating that you are able to do. This game is really freeform in the way that it wants you to negotiate. There really aren't many rules. The only real rule about negotiation in this is that anything that you guys negotiate for the current turn must be honored, but anything that's negotiated for a turn in the future actually can just be broken, which can lead to a lot of really intense moments and can lead to moments where people are getting very angry at one another. But now that you kind of understand some of the core concept of this game, you're trying to move your animals up, getting the votes through each room in order to eventually get to that star exhibit, now you will understand what the other actions actually mean. So what do peacocks do? Peacocks are these neutral players, and I do know that this is new to the game, as in Quo Vadis did not have neutral players. These peacocks actually help with lower player counts, and they also just kind of enhance the experience in general, I've heard. So these peacocks, though, they can be bribed to advance, and this can be helpful because you can actually block a location. There might only be a peacock in the exhibit, so another player can't actually get to that exhibit. Or you can also bribe them for votes. These peacocks can also take up a space in that star exhibit, preventing other players from getting there or limiting the number of spaces available. So controlling these is very important throughout the game as well. And lastly, the move a zookeeper action is important because the zookeeper token is a very powerful game mechanic. You can move the zookeeper token to any path that has a laurel token and place the zookeeper token on top of it. This allows any animal to freely move from one exhibit, passing the zookeeper to another. And that matters because they don't need the necessary votes in order to leave. However, they do not gain the laurel token under the zookeeper, which really does hurt because that's a really good source of victory points throughout the game. So you see how all of these actions throughout the game really do play a huge part into the game's main core negotiation concept of moving your animals up this zoo. But that is not all the game has to offer. In fact, the game actually has a bit more to offer than just that. At the beginning of the game, everybody is going to be a different animal, and every single animal will actually have an asymmetric ability, but not one that they benefit from, one that they can trade and negotiate with to benefit their opponents. And so it's this really interesting dynamic where you're reading your faction's ability and you're like, oh, I won't benefit from this, but I need to think of ways that my opponents can benefit from this. And now that you know the core of how this game works, let me just read a couple of these to you. So the hyenas are the pompous pontificators, and they can actually allow an additional action to move the zookeeper. You also might be the regal rhinos here, which allow a moving animal to move any second animal with it. This could even include your own rhino piece, so it could technically benefit you as well, which is really awesome. The white tigers, they allow an animal moving over the zookeeper to actually collect the laurel token under the zookeeper. You got the ibises, the persistent promoters. They allow a moving animal to enter a full exhibit. Essentially, if there is no room left in an exhibit, you just made room for another animal. We've also got the pragmatic marmosets. They allow a moving animal to collect a different laurel token from the board. I actually played these guys and I had such a fun time basically saying, hey, look, if you're going to move past this point, there is a 5 victory point token over here. You'd only be gaining a 2. If you just give me 3 laurel tokens right now, I will let you take the 5, and you're going to be leaving this scenario with 2 more laurel tokens than I'm gaining. It's just, there's so many different deals that you can do in this game. It's just incredible. So that's that's the marmosets right there. We've also got these cunning, conniving crocodiles. They allow an animal to advance again after it enters a one-space exhibit, essentially allowing animals to move up and through that zoo very quickly. And last but not least, we've got one of my favorites, which is the armadillos. They are infamous insurrectionists. They allow an animal to advance through a tunnel without majority support. On the board, there are two kinds of paths. There are normal paths that every animal can pass through, and then there's these tunnels that the armadillos can actually convince other players to use for a price. But one thing I didn't mention is that every single one of these factions has a faction ability token on top of their player screen. And essentially you only get 2 of those. So once you've used those 2 abilities, once you've basically negotiated your ability twice, you can't use your ability to negotiate with again until you gain another with one of those special laurel tokens that you can pass through. So now you see that the negotiation just had a whole extra layer, and now you see that what once was kind of simple and crazy is now crazy and awesome and not simple at all, but can get kind of complex, but only in the eyes of negotiating. What I really like is that on the back of the rulebook, they actually have all of the animal ability clarifications on the back here, and you can kind of get a gauge on which abilities are more complex to least complex if you kind of look back here for the clarifications. However, throughout this whole experience, I have left 2 important pieces of information from you. 1, when the last animal fills the final seat in the star exhibit, the game is over immediately and every player counts up all their laurel tokens, showing who is the winner. If there is a tie, it is going to be by order of the first animal to the star exhibit, so it is important to get up there quickly. And 2, which is my favorite bit of information about the game, it really just heightens the experience that much more, is the fact that the amount of laurel tokens that you have is hidden information. Every player is going to have a player screen throughout the game, and as you're gaining these laurel tokens, as you're voting players up, you're going to be gaining them on the back of that screen, and players won't have a clear idea of exactly how much laurel tokens you have. They might have some idea, but they don't know for sure, and that keeps players engaged throughout the whole experience. Even if you feel like you might not be getting a lot of deals, you might have more money than the next person. You have no idea, and it really adds this beautiful layer of bluffing and tension and just a really, really fun dynamic to the game. Now, as I'm coming into my final thoughts on this game, one thing that I really want to say is that this game is highly determined by the group that you are playing it with. It depends on if you have people that really want to kind of jump in and negotiate. Oftentimes, the player that doesn't want to negotiate will not win the game. You have to start finding deals to make in order to come out on top, in order to get more laurels than your opponents. And I think that the best experience of this game is actually playing the game that second time with the same group, because then your old tricks can no longer work. They're gonna know your bluff. Like, instead of me always complaining that I have no laurel tokens, they're gonna know that it's total BS and that Sam's just doing his old Sam thing again, trying to convince the table that he's behind, which is honestly what I do in every single board game, but it actually worked here once, but only once, unfortunately. I wish it worked more. But if you get all of that, if you find that group that wants to engage with this game, if you find people that want to negotiate and want to have this backstabbing game of zoo animals going up a zoo to a star exhibit, then this game would be perfect for you. I know that for me, when I started playing this game, it felt like Bitewing Games knew exactly the types of games that I liked, and I feel a little bit targeted because honestly, negotiation is one of my favorite game mechanics, and the fact that this game gets right to the goods, gets right to the stuff that I love about games, which is that entanglement where the choices that we're all making might be helping somebody get in the lead by a mile, but we don't know for sure. And I just love that type of tension. And so This game was perfect for me. I absolutely love this game. It's so darn easy to teach. It's so darn easy to get into. And yet the layer of strategic deduction and bluffing and the dynamic of negotiation, all of those concepts together with the beautiful artwork and amazing graphic design, it's just an awesome product. I absolutely love Zoo Vadis, and I want to play this game more and more and more. What an absolute stellar start to the year of 2023. But guys, that is it for my review of Zoo Vadis. What a wonderful, beautiful, elegant game. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you did, please comment down below whether you have played Zoo Vadis and what your thoughts on it are. Also, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. If you want to check out Zoo Vadis right now, go ahead and check the description down below. There will be a link there to the campaign page. But that is it for the video, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. And with that, let's go ahead and drop the beat.